Hi, folks, and welcome back to part 3 of this series. It's good to have you back. This is where I think this app is really going to start to become fun for us. We're going to add a settings page, which is going to allow the user to filter the results that they see on the screen, to change the station, to limit the number of results that they see, and also to limit the direction. If they only want to see northbound, they can see northbound, and we will filter our stream to do that. So I think this is where it starts to really seem like an app. Last time where we left off, we had this was nice. We had real results coming from the SEPTA API. It looks like Fox Chase is running a little behind this afternoon. We added a change link here, so we can go to our settings page, and if you were hapless enough to click on that, it has an error because our settings page is returning null, and Flutter doesn't like that. So sorry if I traumatized you there. I forgot that that was so bare. But I'm going to reset the state. We're going to take care of that today. We're going to go ahead and build the settings page and get that all set up. So let's go to into screens and go to settings.dart and do all that. What I'm picturing here on the settings page is we will have a couple of rows. So we'll have a row that will have a label and then have a drop down for the station. Another row that will have a label and then have a drop down for the count of results that we want to see. And then we'll have a label, and then we'll have some filter chips for northbound and southbound. So hopefully you can picture that. I could picture it in my head, and it's beautiful. So you have to trust me on that one. So let's get rid of this null. Make this page functional by adding a scaffold. And to the scaffold, we'll add an app bar. And we'll add a title, which will be a text that says departure settings. For a style, I'm going to give that, we're going to use our theme.of context dot text theme dot title. And I'm going to format that. Ready? So that's something that we have already set up here in our main file with our material app, and we have our text themes for body 1, 2, and title, which we used on the main screen, and we're just going to reuse those same ones here on settings. All right, so that is our app bar. Let's get the body. And the body is going to be a list view, so we can have our rows. It will have children. And I'm going to start at the top with a little bit of spacing. So let's do sized box with a height of 25.0. I'm going to save that. I'm going to switch on the emulator to this page so we can see as we build. Next, I'm going to add a row with children. And so the row is going to have the label to the left and the drop down to the right. So I'm going to want a main axis alignment. There we go. Oops, I'm in the children element. That's my problem. Inside the row, we want main axis alignment and main axis alignment space between, so that will put the space between them and push the label and the drop down box to the left and the right. The children will be a text that is our label that says station, and then across from that we will have a drop down button of type string. And so when we first looked at our data source, the SEPTA API, we have a CSV file on the SEPTA API page that has the listing of all the stations, and we will work that into the application later. But for now, we're going to have a drop-down button with just a few options so that we can get this up and running and tested. So for our data, we want a value, and for now, let's just put suburban station. And on changed, we will have a string, which we'll call value, and we'll open up some curly braces, which will give us a place to change the station. And then after our on change, we want the items. And so that's going to be an array of string. It's like that. And we'll throw a few stations in here. We'll throw media in there. We'll throw suburban station. We'll do BLoC. And these are ones I got. I just got the CSV file. I've just copied them out of there, or just looked at them in there and just picked a few to put in here. 30th Street Station. All right, so we've given it strings, and we actually need to give it drop-down menu items. So on our string, we want to attach a map. And we're going to take drop-down menu item, and that's a type string. Make sure you get 2 closing brackets there. You want to open parentheses. There's a lot of typing in this one here. All right, and then inside of parentheses, we want a string called value. So that's what we're going to get from this list of items. And then inside of curly braces, we want to build a drop-down menu item. So we menu item from string. Parentheses, and so these are the parameters that we need to enter. Let's do value will equal value. And child will be a text widget with that value. All right, we need a semicolon there, and then that needs to be converted to a list. I'm going to add a few commas here where they're not, and then I'm going to format that and save that, and we can see that we have our options here: media, suburban station, BLoC, 30th Street. They are kind of pushed to the edges, so why don't we wrap this row with a padding, and let's change. It's going to fill in, at least if you have the latest version of Visuals, the plugin for Visual Studio Code, this edge insets all. I'm going to change that to horizontal. We took care of what we wanted for, symmetrical. And then inside here will be horizontal. And we'll do, let's do like 25. Let's pad it pretty good. Here we go. Push it more towards the middle. All right, so there's our first row where we can select our station. Let's go down below padding right here and give ourselves a second row. And we already know we're going to want padding around that because that's what we did for the one above it. So let's do the same thing as we did up above. Edge insets dot symmetrical horizontal 25.0, and then ready for our child, and our child will be a row just like above with children, and then I'm going to format. Boom. And so same thing, we want a label, and then we want a drop down. So here we'll do text, and we'll do departures. Okay, below that we will have a drop down button, and this will be of type integer because this is going to be the count of the number of train results that we want to see. So our value, let's go with 14 for now. This is just going to be a placeholder till we bring in our stream. The onChanged will be integer that we will call value, and then we will open up some curly braces and we will change count there. So that's our placeholder. And then down below these curly braces, we want to add our items to the drop-down list, which we will call those. Those, of course, will be integers. We'll give it an array. Let's do, we can make up our options here. Let's do 4, 8, 10, 14, 18. Why not? And then we need to do the same thing we did above. We need to map those to a drop-down menu item. So we do .map. We do drop-down menu item inside the brackets. Or greater than, less than signs, I guess, is more appropriate. That's of type integer. We need a double closing there. Parentheses. Oh dear. Ignore that to string. There we go. All right. Parentheses. And then we're getting a value from our array up here. And so we open up curly braces for a function, and we want to return a drop-down menu item. Drop-down a menu item like that. And we will give it a value of value and a child of, well, a text widget with value.toString. So semicolon there, skip the curly brace, and then right here we want to add toList. And that should be, I said the list and I picked toString. There we go. All right, we didn't add our main axis alignment, so up here in our row above children, we'll do main axis alignment, and our main axis alignment will be space between. And there we go. And no matter what we pick, we're going to get 14 because we've hard-coded that value. We'll come back to that. Same with up here. So if you're selecting something and you're not seeing it, that's because we haven't hooked up the stream yet. So we've got our station, we've got our departures. The next thing we want to do is give them a way to filter the northbound, southbound results that they get. So below padding, let's do a sized box with a height of 10 just to give it a little bit of room. 10.0. We do a comma. And I'm going to do a padding here. And the padding is going to be const edge insets, excuse me. Do symmetrical. We'll do 25.0. I'm sorry, horizontal. Horizontal. Until 25.0. That was easy. And then a child with row. And that row will have children. And we're actually just going to have one child there. Let's just do text choose direction. And I am going to let that auto format. Hit save, and we see the label there. So that's going to be the label above the filter chips that I want to use. And so below this padding, we're going to want another padding because we want to keep basically the same spacing throughout here. So let's give it the same spacing. So I'm just going to copy from up here and paste that in as our padding. And then we want this to have a child. And the child is going to be a container. And the child of the container is going to be a wrap widget. And if you're not familiar with this one, this will take a container and wrap the items, the children in it, around based on side to side or top to bottom spacing. So this is perfect for chips. We're going to have 2 chips. We're probably not going to wrap around on the next row, but if we had an exceptionally narrow screen, or we ended up adding a bunch of filter options, it might go down to a second row, and we don't want that to run off the edge. We want it to go into a second row, just like you see most chips doing. So I'm giving the wrap a children property, and I'm going to move it down here. But above that, I want to specify the spacing. So inside the wrap, above the children, I'm going to give it a spacing of 5.0, and then a run spacing of 3.0. Okay, so spacing, it would be, in this case, being inside a container, the spacing is going to be the distance left to right as we move across here. So the space in between the row items, and then the run spacing would be the column items, which there probably won't be any, but if there were, it would space them at 3 pixels. All right, so inside our children, we want a couple of filter chips because we have northbound, southbound. So filter chip, it will need a label, and we will give this a widget that's text widget that is northbound. Sorry, and inside that text, I'm going to give it a style, which is theme.ofContext. And so we're going to use our text theme, and we're going to use body2 here. I'm going to format that. So we've got our label here. And all right, so the next property we're going to cover is selected. And so this is whether it is checked or not checked. So we need a placeholder here because we haven't brought in our stream yet. So let's just say false. And then on selected, we're going to get a Boolean, and it's going to be a value, and we're going to open up curly braces, and we're going to leave it. We'll just put a note in there for now. I'm going to format that. I'm going to save it, and we can see that our northbound filter chip is active. And so I'm going to come up, I'm going to copy that filter chip, put a comma after it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it right below itself with a comma in between. And I'm going to change it to southbound. And just for appearances, I'm going to change this to true so we can get an idea what this is going to look like. So you can see this is what a checked will look like. This is what an unchecked will look like. Okay, that is our settings page. These are the three things that we want to be able to set for the train settings for now. And so let's go back up to the top of this settings page and let's start to work in our streams. So at the top, our station, let's find a place to wrap this that would make sense for us. And I'm going to pick the row. And so I am going to wrap that with a stream builder. But before I do, let me go up and bring in the block just so I'm of that mindset before I get started. So below our build method, let's bring in our block. So we'll say final block equals provider, and you're going to need to import provider, which you can use the auto import of, and we want to specify this is of type SEPTA provider. Also needs to be imported, and we will grab the block item there. So there's our block. So right here, the padding that wraps all of this is where I'm going to put the stream builder. So wrap with stream builder. The object is going to be a string because this is the station. The block is going to be, or the stream, sorry, is going to be block.station. If we don't have a value, I want to return pretty much nothing or an empty container. So let's throw in this line here that guards for that. So if not snapshot dot has data, give me an empty container. Otherwise, proceed down through here. And so we hard-coded our station here at Suburban, but we can now say snapshot.data. And then down here in our onChanged method, we have a placeholder, which we can now remove. And accessing the block, we can change the station and pass it this value that we're going to get. All right, we'll save that. We come over here, we have got media station, and now when we select this, we are actually getting results here. Bad request. Let's see why that is. Oh, okay. I led you astray here. So on the settings page, I had you list media, Suburban Station, Bala, 30th Street Station. It should actually say 30th Street Station. So there's no result there. So I'm going to stop it. I'm going to restart it. And I'll pause so you don't have to watch me do that. All right. And we're back. And it's actually pretty good that we did that. As I say now, because we've actually discovered a flaw in our SEPTA service that, of course, I created because I'm doing this. But this should probably be inside of the try block because apparently, there we go. If we have, if we pass it a bogus value, we pass it some station that doesn't exist. Of course, we can't find the index of this bracket. So if we take that part of the code, we move it into the try block, it will be caught by our error and printed to the console, and still won't be, it'll just display a blank screen with no trains because there's no trains for that station, which is acceptable behavior for us. So going back to our settings then, we had gone to change, so let's change to 30th Street Station, and so we see that sticks. Now, if you come back here, you can see already that this is being passed to the block, and because we have our SEPTA block, we have a listener on the station. When the station changes, it triggers this change trains function, which contacts our SEPTA service, goes out to the API, and gets the station data for that station. So if we change to media, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point here, but there's the media results right there. So we already have our BLoC hooked up for that. So let's go back to our settings page and let's take care of departures and choose direction. So if we go down to departures, I'm going to wrap it at the exact same spot. So we're going to go around the row. We will wrap with a stream builder. And remember, this is an integer. And our stream is BLoC.count is what we called that variable. And so down here for our value, rather than the hard-coded, we want snapshot.data. Before I forget, right down here inside above our return row, if we don't have any data, we want to do something about that. So if not snapshot.hasData, then we will return a blank container just as we did above. Otherwise, we want to continue. So then on changed, we had a placeholder there before, and now we just want to change the count. So we're going to change the count, and we will pass it the value from above. All right, we save that, we select our departures, and we can see that this actually sticks. Now, what we won't see, so if we change this to 4, we go back here, we don't see 4 results yet, and that is because our BLoC is listening on change trains and really nothing else. And our trains object, which we're using on our departure board, main departure board, is just the trains stream. So we're going to have to hook up a filter in the BLoC. But before we do that, let's go back to settings. Let's add the stream builder to the direction. And then we can go back to the BLoC and take care of that piece. So on settings, we will go down to the container right here inside our padding, and we will wrap that with the stream builder. All right, and now this is a list of strings. If you remember from our BLoC, our SEPTA BLoC, on our directions, we created a list of strings. So that's the object that we are looking for. Double closure there. And so our stream will be BLoC.directions, and we will guard against no data by saying, oops, if not, snapshot.hasData, give me a blank container. All right, so we hard-coded false. We don't want that. We're going to need to put a little bit of logic in here, and we're going to end up using our snapshot.data a lot. So down below here, I'm going to create a variable called directions, and we're just going to set it equal to snapshot.data because that will make it easier down here to reference. And so for selected, I'm going to set up a ternary expression. So if direction.contains n, then this will be true. Otherwise, it will be false. Now remember, we set up s and n for our stand-ins here. So if we go back to our SEPTA BLoC, when we load settings, we loaded the n and the s, and this makes sense for us because that's what's in the train object, a north or a south. It's n or s actually in the trains. And we set up a list of strings because we want to be able to put in the north and the south at the same time, or each individually, and that use made sense for us to create that as a list. So that's why it's direction.contains versus equals. And when we select this, if our value is true, so if the filter chip is checked, Then we want directions.add n, BLoC.change directions, and we will pass it our little directions item. So if it's true, then it means it wasn't true before. So we need to put n into our directions. Else directions.remove directions.firstWhere. So we give it a variable. I'm going to call that x, where x equals n. And then we want to pass that to our BLoC. And I'll space that a little bit. So if it was not true, that means it was already checked. So we've unchecked it. It was in the directions object or the list. So we want to get it out of there and then pass the new directions item without the n in there. Whew. Hopefully that makes sense. And so down here, exact same thing, except we are concerned with s. So I am going to, on the selected, copy this whole line. We'll save ourselves some typing, put that right in here, and we'll change this to s. And then on our onSelected, I am going to take everything inside the main curly braces here, and I'm going to put that in here. And I'm going to change my n's to s's. All right, and that should allow us to come over here and check and uncheck these and come in and have them with the same state. And also, like the departures, this will not, so if we have nothing selected, it doesn't impact our board yet. All right. So we're good there. Last thing we need to do today is to go to our BLoC and actually filter the stream. So we are, when we change the station, definitely getting different results here. It's updating everything. But when we go to change the number of trains or the direction, nothing happens. And so we are, in our departures board, we are feeding off of this stream, which is fed from our service when we make our API call up here, and we get 20 results. And so we can operate right here on this getter. The private trains object will be fed directly from the API call. We'll have 20 results, but then our getter can filter those down without impacting our private trains list. And it might be tempting to come in here, and you can see you can do it. You go right on the stream and you say, let's take count.value. So we've got our stream here with the count from there, and we should just be able to feed that in there, but that's not the case. This is a stream right here. You need to get at the objects in the stream. And so to do that, we use this nice map object, which we see transforms each element of this stream into a new stream event, which is not all that helpful. But basically what we're going to get is the object of the stream, which is a list of trains. So we get a train list. We can name it. And then we can use this to arrow function. So then we can start to actually operate on the list of trains. And so we need to do a couple of things. We need to limit the direction, and we need to limit the number of results. So let's start with limiting the direction. So we'll say aware, because we can do that. All right. Where our train, I'm going to just slide this over so I've got plenty of room. Arrow function. And I'm going to do underscore directions. So this is our list of string dot contains train dot direction. And so this is why we did the whole deal with having a list of strings, because if we were to say, reverse this and say where the direction dot contains equals, what do we do if we want north and south? So we put it in a list, and we have compared it to whether our directions contains the train direction from that object. All right, let me make sure I get my placement right. So let's see, we got directions, should be 2 parentheses there. Then we can apply our take on that. So we will take underscore count dot value. So that is going to limit it to the number of results that we have selected on the settings page for our count. And then right after that, so we have a value, we have a closing parentheses, we want to set it back to a list. And this should have been directions.value.contains. All right. That's valid. It's very long. I'm going to format it so it wraps. And so you can see we have our stream. We map it, which will automatically convert it to the object within the stream, which is a list of trains. Now that we have a list of trains object here, we can do a where clause. We did our where clause is where the value of the train direction is contained within our list of strings that we've set in our directions object. We've just taken or limited the results to the count from our settings, and then we have passed it back to a list. Hopefully that's clear. Let's narrow this back down, get this out of the way. And so we have, let's just say we want 4 departures out of media. I'm going to restart the state. There we go. We got Suburban Station. We've got 10. Let's change it to 4. And there's our 4. Let's say southbound. That may have changed. I wasn't sharp enough to notice. Let's say none. We don't want northbound, southbound. We get nothing there. Let's do 30th Street, northbound, 4 results. Remember, okay, Lansdowne. Chestnut Hill East, Lansdowne North. Okay. Then change it to southbound, and a completely different set of results, but 4. We can go here. And so that's where it starts to get really cool. Is that 18 results? Oh, there's probably not that many for northbound, southbound. There we go. Because we are totally interacting with that API, and only when we change the station is it actually going back to the API. Other than that, we have 20 results stored, and we can filter them with these 2 streams there. So that's going to be a wrap for today. We have set up a list here. We have a CSV file from SEPTA, and if this is going to be a real app, we want to be able to take that CSV file and convert it in our app to a useful object here. So we're going to actually hook up that CSV file, use a stream reader to read it into our app in its format directly from the SEPTA website. And then also these, every time we change the station, we are getting brand new results. But if you are at a station waiting, it is not updating. So we have no drag down. People are going to expect if they drag it down, it's going to refresh. But we also want to use RxDart's timer method to actually update the board. So this is like a real board. Every minute it's going to refresh its results and change. And if a train comes and leaves, it should be gone. That's what you'd expect to see from a departure board. So we're going to hook into RxDart's timer feature and make that happen in the next episode. Hope you come back. Thank you for watching. As always, if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I've got a pact with myself. If I get to 200 subscribers, I get a new camera, so help me out there. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.